حي على الفلاح.
First and foremost, indeed Allah is with those who are patient. Just like every trial in life, sihr, magic, being afflicted with sihr is also a trial. As believers, we have been commanded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be patient when dealing with trials. You have to be patient in seeking the cure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have tawakkul ala Allah. Depend and rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Do not depend on other human beings. Do not depend on bracelets and necklaces and amulets and all these other things that are objects of shirk that people use, thinking that these objects of shirk will cure them from sihr. You have to depend sincerely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Also remember that this sihr, this affliction, did not come from its own. Sihr in and of itself has no power to strike you. A sahir, the magician, has no power to attack you. A person who is envious towards you has no power to go to a sahir and afflict you with a sihr on their own. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the ayah in which He mentioned why sihr came into existence, where, when, and what people do with it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, no harm can come to the victims. A sahir cannot do any kind of harm except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this, by the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is a test for you. Different people are tested in different ways. Some people develop other kinds of incurable diseases. Other people lose their job. Other people lose their limbs. People lose their loved ones. You have been tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from His infinite wisdom. He is Al-Hakim, Al-Alim, the most wise, the all-knowing. He has willed to test you with sihr. So no one can harm you with sihr except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This should strike your minds that Allah is the one who willed for me to suffer from this calamity. No one in and of themselves has the power to strike me with sihr. Therefore, the cure also lies only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sihr is something that is hidden. Science cannot explain this thing. There is no doctor on the face of this earth who can prescribe a medication for you to be cured from sihr. The medication is the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Quran, the recitation of the Quran, and the other acts from the sunnah that we know that I'll briefly mention. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us in a few ahadith, in the house in which Surah Al-Baqarah is recited, shaitan doesn't enter it. So you as a victim of sihr have to make the effort, strive your best to recite Surah Al-Baqarah. And wallah, brothers and sisters, this is the greatest medicine that you can acquire against sihr. Recite Surah Al-Baqarah on a daily basis. Connect yourself with the kalam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you will see the shayateen becoming weaker in their strength against you. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the olive oil has barakah. Recite the verses, Surah Fatiha, Ikhlas, Falaq, Nas, Ayatul Kursi, the verses from Surah A'raf that talk about the incident that took place between Musa alayhi salam and the magicians of Fir'aun, the verses from Surah Yunus that also mention that story again, and then verses from Surah Taha that also mention that story again. Recite these verses into a bowl of olive oil or a jar of olive oil, whatever may be the case, and then smear your bodies with that olive oil. Recite these verses in water and take a bath with that water. Recite these verses in water again and drink some of that water. Recite these verses in rose water and spray in your house, the doors and the windows, so there will be a beautiful fragrance all the time in your house. The malaika love beautiful smell. The shayateen love filthy smell. So you want your house to smell very nice all the time. You want the angels to come and protect you against the shayateen. Do these things. And also there are the daily adhkar before you go to sleep. The sunnah is to recite Surah Ikhlas, Falaq, Nas, blow like this and then rub all the way 3 times. Recite Ayatul Kursi before you go to sleep. When you wake up, there are some adhkar from the sunnah that you're supposed to say. After every salah, there are adhkar that you're supposed to say. For example, the Prophet ﷺ said in a hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari that the one who says La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. The one who says this 100 times a day, it will act as a shield for him against the shaitan throughout that day. And no one is better than the one who says this more, meaning more than 100 times, and the number is left open. Do all these things and then see if the sihr is becoming weaker or not. Wallah, over the past nearly 10 years that I've been helping with ruqyah by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when I see cases of patients that have gotten worse, or they're completely, by the will of Allah, have become lost causes, it's because of their own ignorance and their own laziness. They don't understand the religion properly. They don't practice the religion properly. They have haram lifestyles. They listen to music, they smoke, they watch haram, do other haram, sell haram. Whatever may be the case, they are involved in an un-Islamic life. Or they deteriorate, or they become lazy. They disconnect themselves from Surah Al-Baqarah. They stop reciting in olive oil and water, and also honey and black seed for you to take. You can eat that after reciting those verses. They stop doing these acts. They stop reciting the adhkar. They become lazy, and then the sihr overpowers them again. Never does a sihr overpower somebody unless that person has made a mistake. Sure, sometimes a sihr in the beginning stages, someone could be weak, someone could be ignorant when it's first caught, doesn't know how to deal with it, the mind is taken over. And this person is not in the sense to do ruqyah on themselves. That's fine. By the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this happens many times. A person may come, help with the ruqyah, and then this person, the patient, comes to their senses. When the patient comes to their senses, the patient has to become serious. You can't depend on human beings, other people, that every time something happens, okay, someone will come and do ruqyah on me. It doesn't work that way. You have to build that strength. You have to be patient and depend on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. You have to connect yourself with the Quran, and the more knowledge you gain about Islam, the weaker the sihr will become, insha'Allah. Think about it, brothers and sisters. There is absolutely no human being on the face of this earth, not even the biggest scholar in our generation, that can come and protect you against shaitan. It is only Allah Azza wa Jal that does this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, indeed shaitan, the devil, is an open enemy to you. Therefore take him as your enemy. This is for all the children of Adam. Whether we suffer from sihr or not, every single day is a battle that we have to fight against shaitan until the day we die. This is our test in life. So generally speaking, all human beings have to take the shaitan as an open enemy. It's an everyday battle. Add to that the people who have specific cases, they suffer from sihr. So there's a general battle against shaitan, and then there's a specific battle against shayateen due to the sihr. So of course, the patient of sihr has to be more cautious and has to strive harder to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to do these few things, and then seek the cure from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Remember, sihr is very specific. Do not assume, do not give sihr more credit than it deserves. It can never harm anyone except by the permission of Allah. Therefore, sihr does not have the power to completely cripple your life. Sihr is very, very specific. For example, maybe a brother has been afflicted by sihr to cause a rift between him and his wife. So if he now loses his job, it doesn't mean sihr made him lose his job. If he has a car accident, it doesn't mean sihr made him have a car accident. If he has rifts with other people, it doesn't mean that's the sihr's fault. Sihr is very specific. It will only harm for the reason that it was done. The shaitan will come and trick you, make you fear. Oh, you've been struck by a very strong sihr. You have been suffering for 5 years, 10 years. You will never be cured. You start thinking this way, you lose that mental battle. But remember, brothers and sisters, Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater. It doesn't matter how evil of a sahir did the spell on you, or how many shayateen are used for that spell. It doesn't matter. Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than all of His creation. All of His creation, men and jinn, if they came together, they will not be able to harm Allah by the least. Wallah, this is not to sound harsh. I know this can be very difficult, but at the same time, it's not an excuse to be lazy regarding the religion. A brother upon the sunnah will come and do ruqyah. Maybe he does ruqyah, he has time to do it for a couple of weeks. The victim becomes impatient. Oh, this brother must not be good. He's been doing ruqyah on me for 2 weeks. I'm not cured yet. Because you depend on the person and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why maybe Allah is delaying the cure for you. Runs to another person who does it in bid'ah ways, will wear a bracelet, hang another necklace, do this, do that, and the sihr gets worse and worse because he runs after bid'ah and shirk. Allah will never cure you when you do that. And ignorance pushes people towards those things. So brothers and sisters, yes, sihr is a calamity. Yes, sihr is difficult. Yes, sihr can completely take over your mind and you may not have the sense to do these things. I understand all of that. But when you come to your senses, every time you come to your senses, you have to jump on that wagon to connect yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also, brothers and sisters, lastly, those of you who are watching this, if you have a friend or a relative or your spouse or your child that suffers from sihr, for the sake of Allah, help them fulfill that daily schedule. Watch them. Make sure you get your daily dose of Surah Al-Baqarah. Make sure you take the honey and black seed that's recited on. Make sure you put olive oil on yourself that's recited on. Take a bath with recited water. Drink the recited water. Do all these things. Just follow up. It's a schedule. This is your brother in Islam or your sister in Islam. This is your spouse. This is your sibling. This is your child. How can you ignore them? So with this reminder, brothers and sisters, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all those people who are suffering from sihr. We also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may He destroy the plots of all sahirun across this world. This is evil, this is filth. This is one of the worst kinds of shirk that man can commit. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum.